Hello there. I love math. I mean, math's just amazing. And so I would love to teach you a little bit about composite figures. Composite figures means that we're either adding in or subtracting some things out of either area or volume. For right now, what I want to talk about most specifically is volume. And so we're going to go over a few problems, well, two problems on composite figures. And we're going to start with this one. And what we notice is that we have two rectangular prisms. Okay, the first thing we have to do is we have to identify what we have. Together, they create this odd-looking shape. Okay, a composite figure is when I have to add those shapes together because they make up the whole volume. And so when we're looking for the volume of this particular problem, we have to figure out what the volume of each prism is and then add them together. So let me go ahead and throw my laptop into tablet mode so that you can see some things. And we're going to use this nice fancy pen. Alright, so one thing that we need to do is we need to just kind of break it down by different prisms. So we have that big prism, okay? So we'll call that BP. And then we have that small prism, which is SP for small prism. Since they're rectangular prisms, if you recall, the volume of any prism is big B, which is the area of the base, times the height, which is the distance between the bases, okay? But since these are rectangular prisms, all you have to do is multiply the length, the width, and the height. So for the big prism, we're going to multiply 9, 8, and 4. So we're going to multiply 9, 8, and 4. That is an ugly 9. All right. It's kind of ugly 4 too. So 9 times 8 times 4 is 288. And that's going to be yards cubed because we're talking about volume. So we have cubic yards. And then the small prism is 4, 3, and 2. So you're just going to do 4 times 3 times 2. 4 is still kind of ugly. So 4 times 3 is 12, times 2 is 24. And then to find that overall volume, what we got to do is we just have to add those two things together. And so when we add 288 and we add 24, that gives us an overall volume of 312 yards cubed. And that's how you work out composite figures. So let's take a look at another one. This time we still have some prisms. That's the big thing, is that our volume of any prism is going to be big B times little h, which is our height. Big B is our base, and then we have our height, which is the distance between the bases. So the bottom one is a rectangular prism. So we'll just go ahead and call the bottom one a rectangular prism. So RP for short. Since it's a rectangular prism, we're just going to do the same thing we did before, which we're just going to multiply those things together. 4 times 6 times 12. And that gives us an overall volume of 288 cubic feet. Okay? It's 288 cubic feet. Alright, so the next thing we need to do is we need to figure out what the other shape is. So this shape up here has a triangle as its base. Now, just because the base is a triangle, it doesn't have to be sitting on the bottom. Alright? Base doesn't mean the bottom, it means the two pieces that are congruent to each other. And those triangles are the bases. And there's one in the front, one in the back. So what we got to do is we got to find the area of the triangle. So big B, since it's a triangular prism, so I'm going to go TP, tool paper, TP, triangle prism. Triangular prisms, being that it's a T for triangle, we need to find the area of that triangle. So before I do anything, I want to just go ahead and go over here and try to figure out what big B would be. So we have to think back to areas of triangles. An area of a triangle is half the base times the height. So what I mean by base, because notice this is a little h, that does not mean the same thing in terms of the prism itself. We're not talking about the shape. In this case, we're talking about the base, which would be where our height intersects. Okay? And then height of the triangle, not the height of the shape, like the prism. Okay? So it's different. All right, so we got to identify what these parts are. So we know that it's still going to stay as 1/2. So if we look up at this triangle, this right here is our height because it's creating that right angle. And whatever it creates the right angle with is going to be the base. So that means that this down here in the bottom is the base. So we know that our height is 4, so I can go ahead and put that over here. So 4. That 4 is not too bad looking. And then we're going to figure out what that base is, so what goes across the bottom there. Okay, what goes across the bottom. So what is this right here? Well, that is actually the same length as this, because if you look, this distance is the same distance as this right here. And so that means that that base is actually 6. So we're going to do half of 6, which is 3, and we're going to multiply that by 4, which is going to be 12. And we're going to put that in for where big B would be. Okay. And we're going to multiply that by our whole height, which would be our distance between our bases, which is located right here. So that is actually 6. When you multiply them together, you get 72 cubic feet. So now to find the overall composite figure, we add those two numbers together. We take 288 and we add that to 72. And that's going to make a whopping total of 360 feet cubed. That is really tough to see. Bad choice on the pen, I guess. 360 cubic feet. Okay? So composite figures is when we add things together, right? Different volumes, or if we have to subtract a volume out. Sometimes there's holes in things, okay? But right now, just adding together things or subtracting them out. I hope this kind of gave you a little bit of insight on what composite figures are and how to find the volume of them.